For the longest time, I've never been able to fully commit to a relationship with God. Why I haven't been able to do so is because there's just so many things about the process and how I've seen Christianity show up in my life that have just never really resonated or made sense with me. And equally, I've never been in a situation in my life where where I've been in that place of desperation or sadness or depression to where I desperately need something outside of myself, or I desperately need someone to grab my hand. I've never had that deep life changing moment of despair or just depression to where God has needed to be the answer to change everything around. But anyway, going back to what kind of initially started with, I've just never really understood. One of the hardest things for me to get over is I've never really quite understood how God is actually meant to show up in other people's lives. And what do I mean by that? For the longest time, when I listen to other people who have said God has shown up in their life, when I hear them speak about how God has shown up in their life, I find it quite difficult to differentiate what they're talking about, what they are talking about, different to what an atheist would talk about in terms of the good things that have happened in their life and the challenges they've been able to overcome. A lot of Christians, they will talk about, God helped me find this new job. God helped me overcome the death of my parents or the loss of my son or daughter, or he helped me find a new job, or he helped me establish myself in a new city, or he's given me great friends, or he's given me just an overall great life. And I listen to these Christians list off these things one by one, and I just don't know what is the difference between the things you are talking about versus what an atheist would talk about. There's not much of a distinction. I find that the quote-unquote fruits of our labor, let's say, they fall to those who are Christian and those who are not Christian as well. So I find myself in a place where I'm constantly asking us as Christians, what are we actually attributing to God? Where is God actually showing up? Because a lot of the things you are talking about, the good things, the times where you've been able to overcome trials and tribulations, an atheist has experienced those things too. Or not even necessarily an atheist, just someone who is not Christian, a Muslim, for example. So what's the difference? Where are we actually inviting God into our lives? Because if the quote-unquote works He's done in your life, if I can't seem to find any distinguishing factor, then it puts me in a place of confusion. And then it makes me think, do a lot of us actually have those relationships that we think we have with God? Have we actually established those relationships? Or are we just watching the randomness of life play out, whereby good things can happen to you and bad things can happen to you as well? There is no spiritual realm where these things are being established. You're just experiencing life. Because even if we look to the Word of God, I don't have the verse in my head right now, it talks about not many of us are going to make it to heaven. And so if I'm to believe that not many of us are going to make it to heaven, then I am meant to believe that a lot of us who believe that God is doing these things and making these movements and changes in their life, what we're attributing to God, it's not Him. And maybe He was never there for a lot of people, but they think He's been there. And that's something that I've thought about a lot these past 2 years, is the idea that for a lot of us, we've gone wrong about how we believe God actually operates or moves in our lives. And the idea of God we have in our heads, or what we've learned, or how we've interpreted the Word of God, that maybe we've just got it completely wrong. And I don't feel I'm far off in that way of thinking. Because once again, I'll pull up the Bible verse at the end of this video. Not many of us are going to make it into heaven anyway. And so by that metric, not that many people are going to make it into heaven. And so What that means is all the Christians I've seen in my life who talk about all the things that God has supposedly done in their life, the reality is he's never known you. And maybe he's never known me. And I guess that's the one thing I'm kind of tossing and turning with, I guess. Understanding where he's actually showing up for people. Not necessarily where he's showing up for people, but rather if we actually have ever had an understanding of how he shows up in our lives or how he actually operates. And maybe we've never actually had that connection with him. We just thought we did this whole time. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know.